What's going on, guys? Team Labyrinth here with some Azurite Sea Day 1 deck lists. Azurite Sea has just come out, and all of us on Team Labyrinth are excited to see how the set impacts the metagame. There are quite a few new tools that can help out existing decks, and potential for some new archetypes to break through. Here are a few deck ideas we've come up with so far for the new set.
Hello, Sailor here to present you new Ruby Sapphire list for the Azurite Sea Day 1 metagame. So my prediction is that Emerald is gonna reign supreme, and we need to address that as much as possible. I have introduced two new cards, which is Sail the Azurite Sea and Maui Half Shark. Two very good additions to the deck. Basically, we use Sail of the Azurite Sea for a bunch of different openings, either turn 2 along with an item, a 1-drop item, which we have Popsicle, Ice Block, and Vitalisphere. Or we can even do the turn 2 ramp, either the Tipo or the Sail, and then turn 3 Sail into Brawl or Small Sisu. So we're capitalizing on those. And we also have a safe way of profiting from the Chicha on turn 3. Instead of playing it on turn 2, you can play turn 2 ramp into turn 3 Chicha plus turn 3 ramp, now that we have 8 of those. And the reason why is that better is because we can ramp on 2, ramp on 3, and still deal with the board or play Chicha, and still being able to do a 6-drop on turn 4. And the 6-drop that I've chosen is Maui Half Shark.
Sharkhead.
So if you were able to even turn 2 ramp into turn 3 Quill plus Vitalisphere, you can even rush it on turn 4, which is going to be extremely good against a variety of decks. Other than that, it's mostly similar to the set 5 list. By the end of the metagame, we've seen more Chicha to fight the control decks, but also having more early board presence to fight Flynn, for example. And in the very heavy Emerald meta, I think like Small Sisu, Big Sisu is too good to pass up. I've reduced the number of Maleficents to add more Mauis. We don't have Tala, we don't have Medusa, we don't have 5-drop Maui. So it's quite different, but I feel like it's the way moving forward. And we have some numbers of toolbox songs and actions to be recurring with the Maui Half Shark. One of the funny one, and maybe a bit spicy, is Pirate's Life with Maui being able to gain 3 lore and drain 2 for my opponent can be quite valuable, since everybody, I think, is gonna be faster. Being able to generate lore yourself, but also reducing maybe their win by 1 turn, maybe lets us be able to win before them. So how far I'll go, extremely good with Maui. Vitalisphere, very good with Maui, but also the fact that we don't have a 5-drop Maui anymore, we need a little bit of rush. And yeah, so that's what I have for you guys. Ruby Sapphire, Sisu on Ice. See you next time.
What's up, it's NOIMNOT, bringing you a Day 1 Azurite Sea list for, you guessed it, Ruby Amethyst. Our first inclusion being Diablo Obedient Raven. Inkable 1-cost 0/1 that when banished you may draw a card. Paired alongside Cusco 1 and Llama, this makes Merlin Crab an all-star in our deck. We should be able to pair the two and make early trades while still keeping our hand healthy. Moving on, I've included a couple Genie Wish Fulfilled. Genie can act as an additional rabbit, but applies a little more pressure on our opponent by being an evasive 2/4 that quests for 2. The last card I want to try out is Maui Half Shark. 6-cost, inkable, evasive, 7/5. When this character challenges another character, you may return an action card from your discard to your hand, and when you play an action, gain 1 lore. Read that again because this card has a lot of text. When paired with Peter Pan Shadowfinder, we can play Maui Half Shark to have rush and immediately challenge a character and get back in action in the same turn. Buying back friends, Brawl, Be Prepared, or even the one of Dragonfire can prove to be big game, and we get to gain a lore while doing so. Once we've had an established meta, it will be easier to refine Ruby Amethyst, but other cards that I may consider from Azurite Sea are the White Rose, Jewel of the Garden, Yzma, Conniving Chemist, and Hades, Lord of the Dead.
Fellow Lumineers, 'tis I, humble, first of his name, presenting ye with thine Day 1 decklist. Behold! Sorry, talking about the king makes me feel all regal. That's right, I'm showcasing none other than Amber Ruby Mufasa, aka Lilyfasa. We finally got some new tools to beef up this strategy, and I'm super pleased with the results of testing so far. The biggest new card we got, by far, is Simba. No, not that Simba. This Simba. Simba, Pride Protector, allows for some huge tempo turns, allowing us to quest with all of our characters and ready them in the instep to protect them from our opponents challenging them on the following turn. This ability, combined with Judy Hopps, Resourceful Rabbit, means we're able to ready all of our characters during the instep. That's what we call in the TCG biz as a combo deck. Lilo, Escape Artist, is another big addition that can allow some late game inevitability once we reach the higher lore totals, which is something this deck was missing before. Scar, Heartless Hunter, provides some removal stapled onto a key synergy that this deck uses to facilitate our draw engines of Rapunzel and Julieta. Finally, Raya can act as some on-demand ready abilities that can result in some pretty lucrative Gaston turns. You see the addition of Vanellope Von Schweetz as an additional answer to that pesky bird everyone's been up in arms about, as well as some locations. The goal here is as it's always been. Swarm the board in the early game and pressure the opponent as much as possible while using cards like Rapunzel, gifted with healing, and Stitch, Carefree Surfer, to generate more cards. Mufasa, Betrayed Leader, acts as board wipe insurance to assist in rebuilding our character forces after some mass removal effects. Use cards like Doc and Gaston to cheat out some of our more heavily costed characters well before they should ever be hitting the board. And remember, it's all gas, no brakes with the move, so turn those characters sideways and let Simba do the rest.
Wonderland here, and today I'm going to talk to you about a Day 1 deck list for Steel Song from Azurite Sea. We're going to try out a few new cards: Lilo, Escape Artist, I'm Still Here, a song, and Simba, Pride Protector. And the whole point of this current list is to try to play some of the mini cheaper shift target Simbas we have, such as Future King and Protective Cub, which once you add a good shift character to target them, they become a lot more playable. And Simba also gets better with Lilo, as you can discard her and then get her back later as a recursive threat with card advantage. It makes the Future King a much more palatable play, while also being able to use it to discard extra copies of A Whole New World or Docs while you're still going around. And speaking of Doc, it's just something I feel recently I always want to play it as a 1 or 2 of in Steel Song. It just gives you an out against those ramp decks, so you don't have to play A Whole New World to continue applying pressure. And since we're already going on a heavy Simba shift line, we're also going to have a few Son of Mufasas as alternate shift characters to sing Whole New World, while also answering pesky locations and items. And then we have a singleton Cinderella Stout-Hearted. It's just always pretty good to have this to answer Cogsworths or Prince Johns, or just like to clean up against an aggressive board or gain a burst of lore needed in some of the control matchups. And then we're gonna be trying to use I'm Still Here as a way to protect our Simbas when it's the only character we have after singing A Whole New World and readying everything else. We could use our Cinderella with an All Still Here to give it that resist too, so maybe it'll survive, as well as trying to use it on our Piglets or other aggressive 2-drops to try to make it so they don't just get taken out right away. Questing with Smee and then using a Cinderella to protect it just seems like a decent way. It doesn't take the 1 damage and then you get a quest with it again, and while that probably opens up your Cinderella, it might be worth it, as well as playing it on a Simba so it bodyguards your board and they can't really deal with it. So I think this is a pretty reasonable place to start in the format. We don't really know how powerful Simba's going to be and how it leads up, but if we're going to be trying to race other aggro decks while also challenging but not letting them challenge back, Simba seems like to be in a pretty good position to do that.
Hey guys, Xenulous here, and the deck I'll be going over is Emerald Amethyst. Azurite Sea is bringing us some fun tools to add into these ink colors, like the White Rose, Jewel of the Garden, Goofy, Expert Shipwright, and possibly my favorite card released, Go-Go Tamago, Darting Dynamo.
Welcome to the Nerd Lab.
In this first list, we have the same general game plan as the Tempo list in Shimmering Skies. Tempo out the board with our early game like Chernobog's Followers and Bonsai, then move into our more control turns with tools like Kit Cloud Kicker and Lyle Tiberius Rourke, moving right into the mid-game with our card draw engines like Merlin Rabbit and Friends on the Other Side. Go-Go Tamago is something that we've been waiting for. since she allows us to set up situations to punish trades like never before. Let your opponent run a Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood, or Maui, Hero to All, into a Merlin Goat or Mim Fox, and laugh as you pay 4 ink to gain that much lore. The White Rose acts as another uninteractable lore gain, so in a pinch can be used in the same vein as Merlin Goat, but also help you tempo your way to 20 lore. Goofy, Expert Shipwright, is a strong mid to late game tool we can use to protect our Shift Clarabelle or Shift Ursula from pesky ruby or steel removal. You have to trade fair and square, allowing us to set up more possible punishes for Gogo Tamago to take advantage of. Emerald Amethyst remains the toolbox list in my opinion, so there are multiple directions you can go. The second option I'm trying out is a much more aggro approach with some different tools, foregoing the Clarabelle package in favor of a new card draw engine and being able to put on a lot of pressure fast. Fred, Mascot by Day, Gazelle, Angel with Horns, Prince Philip, Royal Explorer, and Genie, Wish Fulfilled, allow us to stay low to the ground and create interesting situations. Fred himself can gain you so much ground early by being something you want your opponent to trade into, but if they end up using removal actions, it allows our next threats to hit the board without fear. Gazelle is an interesting card that can allow you to use existing characters to trade with pesky Diablos or protect one of your high lore threats by giving it challenge protection. Genie is another card draw engine in the vein of Merlin Rabbit, but has the advantage of having evasive and questing for 2 lore a turn. In general, this list really looks to overwhelm your opponent with early threats, gaining lore and card advantage fast while putting characters in play that need answers immediately.
Hey there everybody, it's BannibalHarca coming at you with a day 1 deck list. I've got Amber Amethyst Hyper Aggro. I love to experiment with aggro decks early on in the metagame. I think playing linear strategies tends to be really strong when other people aren't sure what they want to be doing and haven't tuned their list super well yet. I really like that the addition of the White Rose now gives this deck access to 16 different reach cards in the form of lore that's hard to interact with. You've got 4 Merlin Goats, 4 of the White Rose, 4 Blue, and 4 Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, which gives this deck a ton of reach. If you can get to something like 16 lore, it's often really hard for your opponent to stop you from getting to 20, even if they're able to wipe your whole board. We've got the hyper-aggressive threats in the form of Daisy Duck, Lilo, and Maleficent. These are obviously really strong, especially paired with something like Befuddle. You can put your opponent out of the game extremely early if they don't have a good quick start against you. We've got 4 Churnabox followers, 4 copies of the new Diablo. I think the Diablo is a minor upgrade in this deck from Magic Broom. The nice thing about Diablo compared to something like Magic Broom is just that you don't have to pop it. You can leave it in play and your opponent basically loses a lore because they're forced to challenge it down. I like Pascal in these decks. I know a lot of people are cutting Pascal. Pascal is certainly worse than it used to be in an aggro deck like this, but the nice thing about Pascal is that it's sticky. Lilo, Churnabox Followers, Diablo, Maleficent, these are cards that are not particularly sticky. If you play them on turn 1, you'll often only get a single quest out of them. Daisy Duck is of course an exception, but I like Pascal as another 1-drop that you can play on turn 1 that's likely to get at least 2 quests off, and so that's why I've got 3 copies of Pascal here. 4 copies of the new Lilo. I'm not sure how good this Lilo is, but you have to try it. I mean, a 1-2 that quests for 2 is a decent 2-drop to begin with. The fact that you can get her back in the late game when you have a bunch of excess ink is, I think, something certainly worth testing. It's possible that it's too hard to actually ever get a second quest off with Lilo because, you know, in the late game, your opponent usually is going to have characters sitting around that can challenge down a 1-2 pretty favorably, but certainly something I want to try early on in this metagame. Now I'm playing 3 copies of the new legendary Yzma, which is a really strong draw engine. This deck's really good at emptying its hand, and so you can play Yzma. If you're close to winning, you can quest with Yzma. Yzma's a threat that dodges Brawl, dodges Shift Sisu. If she sticks in play, you can almost always use her to draw 3 cards, which is a really strong ability. It's an extremely potent draw engine in a deck like this that tends to empty its hand. The other draw engine in the deck is Amethyst Chromacon. Again, you can leverage this better than your opponents can because you can play all of the cards you draw, and your opponents often are going to get stuck with like 5 or 6 cards in their hand, and so giving them 1 more is not that big of a deal most of the time. And just rounding the deck out with 2 copies of the library sometimes draws cards. It's a nice threat that's difficult for some of the steel decks to answer. But yeah, that's where I'm starting this format, and I think it's pretty good.
Sapphire Steel Illumineers, rise up and feast your eyes on the Bald's Zoolander Wheel, featuring some wonderful additions from Azurite Sea. We have 3 new cards making their way into my favorite deck archetype. Jim Hawkins, Stubborn Cavern Boy, Jim Hawkins, Rigging Specialist, and the Azurite Sea. Our new Stubborn Cavern Boy provides Zoolander with a much-needed answer to 4 willpower characters, such as Daisy, Donald's Date, and Sisu, Emboldened Warrior, if you ink twice in one turn. Not only that, but it also enables the #1 rigging specialist the Azurite Sea has ever seen as an amazing shift line on curve. This Floodborn Gym is one of the cards I'm most excited for in Set 6, as it not only provides an early singer for a whole new world and grab your sword, but its on-play ability, plus challenging, can remove even more problematic cards Steel is not typically capable of dealing with. I'm looking at you, Hiram Flaversham.
All around me are familiar faces.
Because the ink triggered ability on our Cabin Boy is a static ability, shifting Big Jim maintains the static buff, which means inking for turn and shifting Big Jim can clear a castle or a library all on its own.
That's a lot of damage.
What can I say about Sail that hasn't already been said before? It's just a strict upgrade to previous ramp tools like Detective Mickey, Tipo, and One Jump Ahead. You can see I'm packing a total of 11 answers, not including the Tinkerbells, for them pesky birds that keep flying around in the sky. Be a real shame if someone shot them down. And the bird. Zoolander Wheel is currently RM Bald's frontrunner for the North American Continentals in January, and I'm so excited for it.
Alright guys, that's all we have for you for the day 1 picks for Azurite Sea.
Well, actually, I've got one more.
Oh, no you don't.
Nope, that's all.
Nah, Humble, let it go.
But the people...
Dude, stop it.
Humble, no.
They don't want it.
But guys, think about the community.
No, Humble.
I will not be silenced. Hey everyone. Sorry to hog up the spotlight. I'm just too excited to not share this deck. I've been wanting a combo deck that's actually good for quite some time, and I think we might finally have it. Azurite Sea brings us Ucane back, the very first action to ready any character without restriction. And it just so happens to pair with a little card very near and dear to my heart, Mufasa. Yeah, I know, it wouldn't be a Humble deck list without the inclusion of a Mufasa. But this deck aims to win the game in a single turn in true OTK fashion. Do it again, access copies 5 through 8 of Ucane back, as well as some utility actions to reuse in a pinch. To help us get to those turns, we see that annoying little bird everyone seems to hate, for good reason, and Big Mama Cow as our draw engines. We have maximized out as many dig cards as possible to ensure that we can always locate the pieces we need. Alice, Savvy Sailor, helps keep Mufasa safe for a turn, so we can ensure victory. It also has some synergy with Diablo, because that card needed more lines of text. Use the ramp to get Mufasa on the board as early as possible, and look at your opponent in the eyes as you quest for 24 in a single turn.
That's going to be it today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the deck lists. Like and subscribe, as that really helps out the channel. Keep questing, and we'll see you next time.